good to be a Christian. It's good to be a son of God. I was reminded of that yesterday again. When we start realizing who God is, and He's powerful. Johan asked me yesterday to do the tithing message, and it was quite a lot of me. It's a bit nerve-wracking standing in front of you sometimes and trying to carry something over and trying to explain it, because now you've got the people looking at you and you want to say something, and the two clashes the whole time, and especially if someone tells you a day before the time. You don't even have time to prepare and recite it. But I'm telling you, it took me very, 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 very short to prepare this message, because God is in it. God just made me very excited again. He revealed something to me about tithing again, and because we get stuck in our ways. We forget why we do things. And and I was thinking yesterday, how do I explain to people? Because for me, sometimes it's like I want to understand how the engine works. But I'm not a mechanic, but I can drive a car. And I know that the car takes you from point A to B. And I don't need to know how the engine works. And in tithing, God knows how the engine works. We just need to know that we need to get from point A to point B when it comes to tithing. Now, it's difficult sometimes. Johan he's drilled it into us about tithing, and that's how it should be. That's how it should be, When you give, you move God. Johan said it many times, and we see Solomon as an example. He gave 1,000 cattle, and that's when God came to him. He got God's attention, and God came to him and he said, "What do you want from me?" And yesterday I was reminded of this by God. The most important verse in the Bible is John 3:16. It sums up the whole Bible. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, so that whomsoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. That sums up everything. Now, the teaching part that I want to bring in here, it made me so excited, because sometimes, honestly, and let's just be honest, sometimes it feels like we are just worshiping and we don't know why. Sometimes it feels like we're doing it maybe because of this or maybe because of this, but we don't see the power. And I hope you can see the power in this today, because John 3:16 was written by John, and which was done in the year 30, after 30 AD. So in other words, we are looking at, let's say 2,000 years ago or whatever. Okay? But then God reminded me of Genesis 22. Now if you all turn to Genesis 22, can we get that up on the screen? Now this is the story of Abraham offering Isaac. Now, I'm going to read everything up to verse 19, because it is so powerful. And even if we don't get just the tithing part of it, it's so powerful to get God's heart in all of it. But it starts, now it came to pass after these things that God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham, and he said, "Here I am." Then he said, "Take now your son, your only son, Isaac." Now we all know how difficult it was for Abraham to get Isaac. Now here God comes and he says, "Take now your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love." And I think God is even rubbing it in here by saying, "whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah." Now there's a bit of history into this, because if you actually go and study, Abraham came from Babylon. Now, their custom was to offer their children, or their firstborn, to their gods and stuff. Now, God pulled Abraham out of that And now he says to him, go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. So Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey and took 2 of his young men with him and Isaac his son, and he split the wood for burnt offering and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. He didn't even think about it a week or two. He rose early in the morning and he did what God told him to do. Then on the 3rd day, so that 3rd day is also very significant in the whole shadow of Jesus. But on the 3rd day, Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place afar off. Now in Abraham's mind, when he rose up that morning, he has already offered Isaac. Isaac was already dead in Abraham's heart. So on the 3rd day, he came to the mountain. And Abraham said to his young men, stay here with the donkey. The lad and I will go yonder and worship, and we will come back to you. So Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son. Does that sound familiar? And he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and the 2 of them went together. But Isaac spoke to Abraham his father and said, my father. And he said, here I am, my son. Then he said, look, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, my son, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering. So the 2 of them went together. Now that was very prophetic for Abraham and for where we are today. Then they came to the place of which God had told him. And Abraham built an altar there and placed the wood in order. And he bound Isaac his son and laid him on the altar upon the wood. Now, something we have to realize is Isaac wasn't a little boy anymore. He carried a whole lot of wood on. So he was almost a man. And here God, or Abraham binds Isaac. So I don't know what was going on there, but I suspect it wasn't very nice. You know? And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. So he said, here I am. And he said, do not lay your hand on the lad or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Then Abraham lifted his eyes and looked, and there behind him was a ram caught in a thicket by its horns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering instead of his son. Now I say again, Abraham has already sacrificed Isaac in his heart. He already took those steps. But God had other plans. And Abraham called the name of that place, the Lord will provide, or Jehovah Jireh, which we hear so often today. As it is said to this day, in the mount of the Lord it shall be provided. Then the angel of the Lord called to Abraham a second time out of heaven and said, now this angel of the Lord, I believe, was Jesus. The words he used was just so profound. And he said, by myself I have sworn, says the Lord, because you have done this thing and have not withheld your son, your only son. In blessing I will bless you, and multiplying I will multiply your descendants as the stars of the heaven and as the sand which is on the seashore. And your descendants shall possess the gate of their enemies. In your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned to his young men, and they rose and went together to Beersheba. And Abraham dwelt at Beersheba. Now, just for interest's sake, so Abraham returned to his young men. Where was Isaac? I think he ran. So God just showed me again, by Abraham's giving, he blessed all of us. So Abraham's giving moved God to do the most wonderful, powerful thing ever, by one man's giving. So tithing and offering is the same thing today. We move God with our giving. When we give, we show God where our heart is. And God tests us, not for him, for us. He shows us who we are. And God says, I have created you. I am proud of you. Because he is. And so should you be. Let's all come to the front and let's sow.